Update. Am I the a-hole for refusing to take care of my niece after she called me a slur? Original post. I, 29 male, and my wife, 30 female, have 2 sons, 5 and 3. My wife works a full-time office job, while I work from home with extremely flexible hours. Basically, as long as I meet my deadlines, no one really cares how many hours it took or what time of day I work, outside of some Zoom meetings. My sister, 26 female, let's call her Barb, and her husband, 30 male, let's call him Nick, live nearby and work full-time jobs. They have a daughter, 5 female, let's call her Tracy. Because of my comfortable work schedule, when our kids started going to daycare, we basically decided that I'd be dropping off and picking up my niece from daycare alongside my own kids. I didn't really mind, and I thought it was great for my kids to spend time with their cousin. I get along with Tracy as well, and always thought I was her cool uncle. She's a sweet kid and usually well-behaved. So anyway, most days I bring her and my kids back to our house. I make them snacks or dinner, and in the afternoon/evening, my sister comes to pick them up. A few days ago, the 5-year-olds were watching Bluey on TV as I was preparing snacks with my 3-year-old, and I suddenly heard yelling. I rushed over to see what was up, and my son was yelling at her, "My dad's not a girl," while my niece yelled back, "He is. He's a faggot. That's like a girl." The word is different in my language, but the meaning holds, as does the distinction between using it versus simply addressing a gay person. I was kind of in shock at first, but I turned off the TV, sat her down, and began explaining that this is a very bad word, and we shouldn't be calling people that. And that regardless, I'm not a girl. Because this is a bad word, she should apologize to me, because we don't act mean to each other in this family. And if I hear this again, I'm going to talk to her parents and she's going to get in trouble. She said she won't get in trouble because that's what her dad called me, and he's not in trouble. I was stunned. I told her that regardless of what her dad said, it's a very bad word and she's not to use it with me or in my presence, and that she should apologize regardless because it hurt my feelings, which she did, because she's a really good kid. We talked some more and I prodded her about other things her parents said, and from what I gathered, getting info out of a 5-year-old being obviously a difficult and unreliable process. Nick, my brother-in-law, told my sister in Tracy's presence that men shouldn't be sitting at home all day and doing childcare. That cooking is a woman's duty, as is cleaning and really most of the things I do around my house. And that I'm a girl. I interpret this as not really a man, because I do housework and my wife earns more money than me. I explained to her the best I could that men and women could work from an office or from home, and that my wife or Barb working long hours from the office doesn't make the men and vice versa. But I didn't dwell on it with her since it's not really her fault. I didn't immediately bring it up with my sister because I figured it would be a difficult conversation, and I didn't want to have it in front of the kids. And I wanted to talk it out with my wife first as well. I did talk to my wife that evening, and she seemed really upset as well. I told her that I think I should demand an apology from Nick and my sister, and she agreed. So I called my sister and told her what happened, and she said that it's just a word and I'm blowing it out of proportion, and obviously Nick doesn't dislike me. I said I don't care whether he does or doesn't dislike me. He is talking crap about me behind my back to my niece and to her, and she is apparently very chill about this rather than standing up for me. She said that was how Nick was, and I should stop being a drama queen. I told her to buzz off, and that if that was how she felt, she could pick up her own child from daycare, and hung up. I know it was really short notice and rude, but I really felt like I was being disrespected by people I did so much for over the years and who were my family. My wife said she understood, and that I shouldn't back down until I at least get a proper apology. The next 2 days were a weekend and there was no daycare. I assumed there would be calls or texts from Barb, but there was nothing. In fact, the suspicious lack of any messages or calls made me think she didn't take my words seriously. And this actually got me even angrier. The calls did come when it was time to pick up Tracy for daycare, and I, obviously, didn't come. I dropped my own kids off and didn't even answer for a while. I know it was petty, but I was stewing for 2 days and figured letting Barb stew for a few hours seemed really appropriate and felt really good. Around noon when she called again, I did pick up. I was going to smugly tell her that I was ready for my apology and we would put it behind us, but I didn't get to. Instead, she went off on me about how I was irresponsible and flaked, and she was so late for work because of me, to which I just said, "I told you I wasn't going to pick her up. You had 2 days to make arrangements." And she kept yelling at me, so I hung up again. She kept calling and sending me texts about picking Tracy up from daycare, to which I said I would not be, then stopped replying. When I came to pick my kids up, Tracy was expecting me to take her as well, and I didn't, which was very rough on me and her both. Like, I know it's not her fault and she's 5, and she suddenly doesn't get to go over to our place and play and have snacks. But at the same time, I didn't want to just let this thing go. I felt like I deserved an apology, and still do. So I explained that me and her mom were fighting, but I'd pick her up again when we work it out. She obviously didn't take it well, because she's 5, but I apologized, took my kids, and left. Well, a bit later I got a call from my mom. Barb roped her into picking up Tracy, but my mom is disabled, so she was having a really hard time with Tracy and asked me why I was being mean to Barb. I told her everything, expecting her to take my side, but instead she also pulled a, "You know how Nick is," to which I replied that the more I realize how Nick is, the less I like it. And if he thinks all this crap in general and about me specifically, I sure as heck ain't going to be doing free labor for him. She said I was blowing this all out of proportion, and I told her I wasn't the one doing it. Because all I asked for was a freaking apology, and everyone else seemed to prefer all of this crap to just giving it to me. To which she said I should just be the bigger man and not let it get to me, to which I said I was done and to have fun with Tracy. That evening, I got a call from Nick himself, which I was hesitant about, but chose to answer on the off chance that I was actually about to get that apology. Nope. Apparently, my behavior is causing Barb great distress, and we're family, and how can I do this to my own sister? I told him that since we're family, how can he talk crap about me to his kid, whom I take care of daily? And he said he was only joking and it was all in good fun. I told him it was neither good nor fun for me, and I want my apology. He blew up on me, telling me I was a faggot and couldn't take a joke, and called me a hysterical little girl. I told him to F off and that I was done with him and hung up. This led to a bunch of calls from Barb and my mom, which I didn't answer. Barb texted me that it wasn't fair for Tracy to pay the price for me being petty, and I told her that it wasn't fair for Tracy to pay the price of her parents being ungrateful pieces of turd, to which she just yelled at me a bunch about how she was going to lose her job and I was being cruel to her and to mom. I told her I was done, and unless her next message was an apology, I would be blocking her number, and it wasn't. So now I blocked her. The past few days, my mom's been picking up Tracy, and it's been really rough seeing her in daycare and explaining that grandma's going to pick her up, which she hates, and tells me she isn't having fun with grandma and wants to come over to our place, and it's breaking my heart. But at the same time, I never got a single apology from anyone but the 5-year-old, and I feel like letting this go would just be telling my family that it's okay to ignore my boundaries. But at the same time, I do love my niece, and I don't want to traumatize her or have her resent me. She is a good kid, and none of it is her fault. So, am I the a-hole? And what do I do? Now for the top comments before reading the updates. Not the a-hole. Nick is always the a-hole, so people are used to putting up with him. You standing up to him and making him responsible for his actions is breaking the status quo. They would rather tell you to help stabilize the boat than tell Nick to stop rocking it, because it's easier to bully a nice person than it is to change a bad person. Not the a-hole. Nick was so disrespectful about you and how you choose to live your life, although you've done nothing but be helpful in caring for their daughter. He's outed himself as an awful and a genuinely nasty person that you shouldn't bring anywhere near your family. It's very telling of how your family see you, as free child care and nothing else. A complete lack of respect. The fact that the child has remembered this all suggests that it's not the first time he said it, and he's clearly been whining about you constantly without your sister shutting it down. Your mom, the enabler, and sister are horrible people for downplaying the impact of those words while expecting you to continue caring for Tracy as if nothing happened. Until you receive a sincere and heartfelt apology from all of them, I would completely refuse to provide childcare for them. If you do get one, it's completely up to you if you decide to help them out again without some kind of monetary benefit to you. Even then, I'd completely understand if you never wanted to help them out again. It's a shame that the impressionable child will have to suffer as a result of her parents' disrespect, but ultimately, you reinstating childcare lets them win and excuses their behavior as there are no consequences. You're not a doormat. Don't allow them to walk all over you. Edit/mini update. Post's barely been up 4 hours, and I am already so grateful for all your support and advice. The angle of Nick actually wanting Barb to quit her job is not one I considered, but now I think it might actually have merit, and it makes me very worried for her. At the same time, I can't really do much until she at least acknowledges that that's just how Nick is, so stop overreacting isn't going to fly with me. I also assume it's only a matter of time until my mom is no longer an option. She's already having a hard time, so I hope I get a chance to talk to her about it. Ideally, because she sees my point of view, but I'll settle for because she's desperate. I don't know what sort of childcare they'll be able to afford. They took out a large mortgage on a house they can barely afford. I will also make certain to stress to Tracy that I love her and none of this is her fault. Thank you all. Now for the first update. Alright, so I posted this yesterday and was genuinely overwhelmed by the comments, advice, and support. I'd like to thank everyone for it and feel this warrants an update. Just to clarify a few things. My dad died from a heart attack 2 years ago, which came as no surprise because he smoked a lot and lived a pretty unhealthy life, so we weren't really surprised. It wasn't his first either. He was a great grandpa and a great dad before that, and right up to the end, but his death left my mom alone and she doesn't work. My mom has MS, which is basically mostly steady, but slowly gets worse over time and flares up occasionally, and is made worse by stress, which my mom goes through now. A flare-up often means the level she gets back to isn't quite what it was before, so we mostly try to keep her stress-free. My dad had life insurance, so her house is paid for and she had a little money, but there's also a caretaker coming over 3 times a week to clean, cook, do shopping, etc., which she can't afford, so my wife and I pay for it. As I mentioned in a comment on the original post, my wife and I are probably better off financially than Barb and Nick. They have a fancy house and fancy cars, but they have a mortgage and loans. So, the great response I got made me think about this again, and I thought how I could stand my ground without giving up on Tracy altogether, and figured there was no perfect solution, and I had to settle on something. I took the day off work because I just needed to process and deal with this. One comment on the original post really got to me, about how someone would feel in Tracy's place, and I just can't do it to her now. I know this isn't the update some of you have wanted, but I just can't. I love her like she was one of my own, and my kids do as well, and it's not her fault. I unblocked my sister because obviously, if I'm going to be interacting with her child, she needs to be able to reach me. I talked to my mom during the day, and she was, again, distraught about having to pick Tracy up, which is pretty hard on her. I told her I was willing to do it, but I'm coming over and she's going to have to hear me out, to which she agreed. I talked to her for a long time, avoiding snark and lashing out this time, and just explaining that basically how serious Nick was or how he is doesn't matter. I used that rocking the boat analogy someone linked to in comments, and further stressed my point by saying that it shouldn't matter if I was justified or not in getting upset. I am her child, and if something upset me, it at least warrants giving me the benefit of the doubt before siding against me, and eventually it seemed to come through. She apologized and we hugged it out, and I think she got it. She's not a very confrontational person, and generally really tries to keep the peace, and this time she went about it wrong. I'm not saying I'm not mad, but she's my mom and she apologized. I explained to her that she shouldn't be covering for me because that means I have no leg to stand on when confronting Nick and Barb, and she was receptive to it. I texted my sister that we needed to talk and I'll drop Tracy off at their place tonight, to which I got a stoic thumbs up. I picked Tracy up from daycare today and she was overjoyed. She was actually a little possessive of me, staying by my side all afternoon instead of running off to play, which was cute but also made me feel like crap a little, because that's the impact of me not picking her up. I explained to the best of my ability that she's not in trouble and I'm not angry with her. But I am angry with her parents and we need to work that out. But I'll do my best to not stop picking her up anymore, which she was really happy about. I dropped her off in the evening, and once she was in bed I sat down to talk with Barb and Nick. I told them flat out that Mom wasn't going to be covering for them anymore. And if they didn't let me finish what I had to say, I would get up and leave, and they can find new arrangements for Tracy. Didn't mean it, but they don't need to know that. They weren't happy, but they were willing to listen. So that's progress, or at least the threat working. I explained that this was the situation now. I don't need them to mean their apology, but I sure as heck was going to need one. This was principle now. I have spent years taking care of their child, and if they wanted to be a-holes, I wasn't going to do it for free. So this was how it goes now. 1. I am no longer going to be dropping her off in the morning until further notice. There was no excuse for the way Nick acted, and it needed to have some lasting impact. 2. I am no longer going to be paying for family outings and family vacations. It's a man's job to support his family, so good luck with that. The exception is Tracy, who is always welcome. 3. If I hear any more BS being talked about me behind my back, I am going to start charging them for my service. My plan was to dangle the thing they want, childcare, restoring it, but at the same time giving some repercussions and threat of things getting hard for them again. I also laid it on pretty thick about how I am a man, so I obviously have my pride and can't have that be disrespected, even by my own family who I obviously love. Don't really consider Nick family, but figured he wouldn't figure that out. Nick was not happy about this, and my sister actually had to take him outside to talk it out without me, but eventually they did agree to it, and I got my admittedly half-hearted apology. I could probably press it further, but I didn't want to risk having to either back down or hurt Tracy again, so I took this. There were no tears and no warm hugs, but I get to walk away with what I wanted, giving them some payback without having to give up my time with Tracy. I still plan to talk to my sister alone about her relationship with Nick and about how she sees me, but I figure I should let things calm down a bit before I do. I know this isn't the resolution some, maybe most, of you wanted, but at the end of the day, I need to find a solution I can live with, and for me this is it. We'll update if anything changes. You are paying for their family vacations? Damn. Talk about biting the hand that feed you. Mistaking kindness for weakness. For a guy obsessed with manliness, he sure can't fulfill his traditional husband duties. Repercussions for the adults is good. Tracy doesn't feel punished, but the adults have real consequences if they violate your boundaries. I think that's really important. Agreed. OP was in such a terrible position, and I feel like he really threaded the needle the best anyone could. As he said, he had to make a decision he could live with. He loves his niece and can't live with hurting her, and I would 100% feel the same. But this solution makes it clear that his parents are still in the crapper, where they should be. OP, I hope you take the time with your niece to do some counter-programming to her parents' toxic rhetoric. That poor girl needs to learn what is normal and acceptable, or she's doomed to marry a douchebag like her father because her mama taught her that's the ideal. Second update 3 months later. These past few months things have been tense, but okay. I haven't gone back on my word about dropping her off, and haven't been paying for meals or anything, really. I've also, having realized what sort of man Nick is, been gently trying to get some alone time with my sister and ask her some questions about their relationship. Has he been isolating her? Is she financially dependent on him? Can she go out with her friends? How jealous does he get? Some of her answers made me a little uncomfortable, but I can't really force her into anything. I'm not trying to excuse the way she treated me, but I also think she's in a bad situation herself, and I don't want her to become more isolated than she is. So I'm gently trying to guide her down the right path, dropping hints like, "Isn't it like what your really bad ex used to do?" and the like. I don't think she quite realizes how deep into this she is, but I also know from past experience that forcing her into anything is really going to mostly cause her to pull away and become more stubborn. So I'm trying to guide her to the right conclusion gently, while making sure she knows she has a place to go and someone to support her if she ever chooses to break things off. Nick hasn't really been anything with me. I don't think his feelings about me have changed much, but he's basically avoiding interacting with me and has to work a lot when we get together as a family, which I think might be the best outcome for everyone involved. Tracy has been sweet. She's slowly learning to read alongside my oldest and still enjoys bad words. We just use less mean bad words now. Poop has been a hit. She's now a big fan of the Tom Cardy song, "Have You Checked Your Butthole?" We've been pretty good about making clear the difference between rude words and hurtful words. Over the holidays, we went on a trip. At first, Barb and Nick were probably shocked that I was serious when I said they were welcome to join us, but I wasn't paying for anyone but Tracy if they chose to send her along. I talked it over with Barb, leaving it up to her how to convey that to Nick, who, as stated, was avoiding me. I assume he didn't take it well, but I don't really have a way of knowing for sure. Barb, for her part, tried doubling down, getting me to cave, but I stood my ground. I said I wasn't paying for things, and I meant it. I explained again that this wasn't about a specific trip, but about the fact that I used to believe that they genuinely and unconditionally loved me, and that is just no longer the case. It's not something I can just unfeel. I need this to feel like I am standing up for myself, and she can choose to respect my feelings and my decision, or to be angry, but I won't back down on this. The only choice that is up to her is to come on her own dime or not to, and to send Tracy along with us or not if she chooses not to come. She ended up sending her along, and we had a blast. My wife seems much relieved to no longer have to put up with Nick as often. She apparently had him pegged from the get-go, but wanted me to come to my own conclusions, and was hoping he wasn't as bad as he seemed to her initially. She's glad I'm standing up for myself, and is glad we still get to hang out with Tracy. I still hope someday Barb comes to her senses about her situation, and I will support her fully if she does, despite not quite being over what she either thought about me or at least didn't stand up for me to Nick about. But she's still my family. Regardless, thank you to everyone for your support and advice. Now for the recent update 9 months later. I'm having a hard time being there for my sister after my mom's passing. I don't really know how to explain this frustration really. It's not that she did anything wrong. She's not being rude or hurtful or anything. I'm just really tired. I feel like I'm spread too thin, and I don't have much left to give. It's all just too much. It all started a few months back. My mom's health took a turn for the worse. She started some treatment, which made her immune system go out of whack, and unfortunately that caused an infection, and she was just gone. It was a matter of weeks. One moment she was her usual self. Then she had an MS flare-up, and soon she was just gone. It was so sudden. And then before I really had time to deal with my feelings about that, my sister told me she was getting divorced. I don't blame my sister for that. The way her ex behaved regarding my mom's health and passing made it absolutely the right choice. But my sister just started depending on me so much for everything. Emotional support, childcare. It was too much. I used to be able to be there for her all the time, but I just can't as much anymore. I have a job. I have my own children to deal with. I can't have a 2-hour phone call with her at 2 a.m. and then get up and function all day like I could when I was 23. To make things worse, her ex is making the divorce an absolute nightmare. He keeps making things up or randomly opposing previously agreed to terms, which my sister needs to deal with, often involving turning to her lawyer, the social worker managing the case, and sometimes a judge. It drains her time and resources, and then I have to shoulder some of that load as well. It gets absurd. At one point, he used her spare key to her car to take his daughter's car seat. There was no reason to, as far as I can tell, except it being a gift from his mom or something and wanting to be petty. He just left her without telling her, which meant I had to be called to give her my spare. It was the pettiest nonsense in existence. They're trying to sell their house, which they have to do to cover what I now know to be an absolutely unreasonable mortgage they took out to buy it. But this having to go through 2 levels of lawyers, the ones handling their divorce and the one handling the property stuff, also makes it both cumbersome and exhausting. And I'm just drained. I want to be there for my sister, and even more importantly, my niece. But I'm just so tired all the time. I feel myself having less patience, becoming less fun with the kids. I hate that they're paying the price for what isn't their fault at all, but I just don't know what to do. I considered therapy, but I genuinely don't have the time. My wife's been a godsend, but her work is incredibly demanding, and there's only so much she can reasonably do. And besides, these aren't really her monkeys. I can only reasonably burden her with so much. I'm just drained. I don't know what to do really except soldier on, but it's just really hard right now. Much like OP, I am also finding it hard to find any sympathy for his sister. It is sad that it took their mom passing for sister to finally see a problem in her husband. Her immediate family calls OP slurs, Then she proceeds to double down, and now she expects him to drop everything at 2 a.m. to be there for her, since her husband has now turned on her. She needs to figure herself out and stop making her family's lives harder. I've met people who thought their spouse talking absolute garbage about innocent friends and relatives was cute, right up until their spouse turned all that vitriol on them. Suddenly, it was a major divorce-worthy offense. Last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to forgive my brother-in-law for having feelings for me and not inviting him to Christmas? I'm on a throwaway because, understandably, I don't want this on my main. And yes, I know how this sounds. Just bear with me. Adam is married to my sister June. They have a 2-year-old son. I have a daughter who is 9 months old. In April of this year, June and Adam went through a brief separation because he admitted to her that he had developed feelings for me. This apparently happened during my pregnancy and continued after I had my daughter. According to June, he swears it's not a fetish and that he actually loved that I didn't seem pregnant. Not the point, but I just thought I'd add it because I jumped to the fetish thing. Obviously, he and June went through a really rough time, but decided to work through it by attending couples therapy. Could never be me, but it's her life. The thing is, I cannot trust Adam anymore. Just the thought of him makes me nauseous. We stopped having them over, or even going to family things at the same time because of how weird it was. And while June insists she and Adam are in a good place and are over this bump, I'm not. I don't want to see or talk to him. This is a guy I considered part of my family. He helped me set up my husband's Valentine's Day present. He put air in my tires. He held my daughter. And for a good chunk of time, he was imagining doing things with me. I'm disgusted. And I know he was because June found his internet history. I don't want to be near him. He has apologized to me via email, but I just don't accept it. I want to, for June, but I feel violated. So for that reason, I didn't invite June and Adam for Christmas, since I'm hosting the family. I thought June would be understanding, but she's not. She's calling me mean and petty, and saying I'm making her marriage problems about me when it's her relationship, and that no one is going to move on from this if I don't let them. But I don't want this man staying in my house, and I know it's about her marriage, not about me, but I was, unknowingly, part of her marriage for a hot minute there, and I still feel just grossed out by it all. June is mad because she feels like the reason my parents are holding back on forgiving Adam is because of me, and that Christmas is the time to mend fences. Am I the a-hole for not wanting him there? Not the a-hole. This has nothing to do with her or her marriage. This is about you feeling violated. Your sister has to decide if she can trust him, but so do you. If you do not feel comfortable being around him, then you don't. It's not your fault he was perving on you. No one should be forced to have someone they do not feel safe with in their home. Have they offered to pay for therapy for you? They got to work through his actions, but you just have to accept he was perving because your sister accepts it? If you let them in, tell them they need to pay for door locks and CCTV cameras, as you won't feel safe. I can afford therapy myself, but I've actually been going since before the birth of my daughter. I just have other things to talk about. It's not like this bothers me day to day. It's just when it comes up, I am hit with the fact that I want nothing to do with this slug.